What I think is really interesting about what you just said is I think there's a desire to know people.
I think there is too. I feel not guilty that I drive, but sometimes I just get home and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm just going to shut the door and be good. But it does, not just from a business standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, people crave those relationships. I'm Kristin Andree, founder and chief strategist of Andree Consulting Group. I founded my company almost 10 years ago because I love helping people not only succeed, but thrive in their careers and their lives. So many times I meet amazing people who have so much more potential than what they're utilizing. As I engage with them, there seems to be a common theme: the limits they place on themselves. Throughout this podcast series, we're going to visit some incredible people who have created more intentional lives for themselves, those who've had that no limits moment where they chose to grow and they put things in motion to help them do so. We'll focus on how you can break through limits, we'll equip you with strategies to help you lead a more intentional life, and we'll have a lot of fun along the way. So let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to No Limits with Kristin Andree. We are here with Brian Weiss, who is a sales executive of the Vugler Design Group. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, so I'm excited today because we had an opportunity to meet before, and you've got some really cool stuff going on. And, a lot of our listeners around the country and around the world, they're in different size cities. So some cities are huge. Atlanta, where we're based, is a really, really big city. Mm-hmm. But if you really look at it, it's a bunch of little communities within a huge city. So, very rarely, like if you meet somebody and you say, well, I live in Atlanta, they go, oh, what part or where in Atlanta? So you've got to narrow it down to the community. Are we starting to get that hyper focus with branding and marketing and kind of outreach?
I think certain brands are.
Okay.
Right. If I'm a real estate agent or a financial advisor or a State Farm insurance agent, right, then my success doesn't really isn't as aligned to the greater Atlanta market as it is to where my sphere of influence starts, and that's in my local market. Yeah. And so what can I do to make a really strong connection with the community with which I live and work and play?
Right.
And how do I become as well known as possible in that market? Because my business depends on it, right? My success is ultimately going to be determined by the people of Suwanee, right? If my business was in Suwanee. And so I think it depends on the type of business, but certainly for that local community-based business, it's extremely important.
So for the local community base, you have a great person you partner with and business you guys have had the opportunity to work with. It was kind of what I would call hyper-local, like really get it. So talk to me about how he got involved in the community, because it's a cool story of really, when I sat back and heard the story that you'll tell, it's about you're just getting to know people.
I met Brad Abernathy about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
He's a realtor in Gainesville, Georgia, which is another 15 or 20 miles further away from Atlanta than Buford.
Right.
We're
getting up there now. We're getting further away from the city.
Brad's out in the country.
Out in the country.
So Gainesville has about 40,000 people. It's not a tiny little town, but it's certainly not Atlanta.
Right.
He's one of 1,400 realtors in his market. So
Holy
he's in
cow.
a competitive environment when you consider that as a percentage of total population.
Goodness gracious.
He's been in real estate for 23 years plus. He's been a top producer in Gainesville for the last 7 or 8. He's a very accomplished realtor.
Right.
But he desired to, protect him and his team from any downturn in the economy. We all are aware of, the housing turn that happened in 2007 and 2008. So he and his partner came up with the idea of celebrating community. And so they created a platform. It's called the Faces of Hall County. It's a website that basically just tells the story of individuals that are a part of the Gainesville community.
Okay.
And the idea behind it was, as a real estate agent, he's privileged in a sense that he gets to meet a lot of really interesting people. He has more intimacy into what Gainesville really is than a lot of people that have a regular 9-to-5 job, because he hears all these stories and he's interacting with all these unique people. So why not be the person that tells the story of our community through this Facebook page and website in an effort to help people get to know each other, right? So we all go to the local coffee shop on the corner. We see the same server. We know the manager, but we don't really know the manager, right? So Brad's desire was to go in and sit down and spend a half an hour, 45 minutes with that manager and really learn why Gainesville? Why is this where you want to live and want to be a part of having a community-based business? And then introduce that story back to everybody else in the Gainesville community using Facebook and using this website. And frankly, the response has been amazing. As a well-producing real estate agent, he had a real estate website that was doing a few hundred monthly views. And 3 months after beginning to kind of share the story of these people using his business Facebook page, his website was over 4,000 monthly views, and today it's approaching 8,000 monthly views.
It's just it makes sense though if you think about it, because sometimes you usually only go to a website if you're seeking information. And so for a real estate agent or a financial advisor or any consultant like myself, nobody's really going to our site unless there's something new. And if they think it's salesy or about us, they're less likely to go there. So
and you don't
I could
really
see
buy
that
a house
you want to
that often.
Exactly.
Right?
So I'd have no need to go to the site unless same thing with financial advice. A lot of websites out there, but if it offers something new, I think it'd be a little intriguing too, because you mentioned the coffee shop. If there's a local coffee shop, you're right. I may go in and out. I know the people at a lot of the places and restaurants I frequent, but I don't know them.
You may know their first name because you've been there enough.
Sure.
You may generally feel like you know them,
but I don't know their story.
You don't really know them, and you don't know what you have in common. And so, Brad's, he's now 340 interviews in the Gainesville market, and literally there are hundreds of people that identify through reading stories of others.
Right.
And so when they see each other walking around the community, they're not having conversations, right?
Like,
so,
hey, I saw you on Faces. Okay,
yeah,
Faces Up. Yeah.
The community has now, in a sense, become a lot closer together as a result of this project, and high school students have gotten involved.
Well, I was going to say, is it business owners or what? Who else is he interviewing?
You name it. So imagine a situation where we sit down. Mm-hmm. I hear about this great podcast that's going on from this highly accomplished individual, Kristin in Alpharetta.
How about that? Sign us up. No.
So we're talking about the faces of Alpharetta, and you and I have a conversation, and I get to know you, and I want to promote you on this project because you're a contributor to this great community we live in. And you naturally, as a result of the experience, are going to come up with 2 or 3 people you think that should have to be a part of this as well.
Yeah, the restaurant owner down
right?
the street, the mechanic.
Have you talked to Jamie?
Kid,
and so it just begins this viral kind of growth.
Sure.
Where not only are the people that were a part of it talking about it, but now people that are observers are talking about it. And there's a link on the website where you can nominate somebody.
I think that's really makes sense because, obviously with the podcast here, with No Limits, we've got a more global audience. Mm-hmm. And we'll have people on and we'll follow up with them like, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so and so-and-so. And I got an email yesterday with a former guest like, oh, I thought of another person that would be great. So they do just naturally because they want to help get other people's stories out there. It's not about me. It's about, sharing everybody else's stories. But I love the hyper-local focus.
The thing that's amazing about it is, so Brad went from being a top producer in Gainesville.
Right.
And literally that very next year, the revenue for his business almost doubled, and he's now one of the top 50 producers in the state of Georgia.
Whoa.
Out of this tiny little town right outside of Atlanta.
How about that?
And it's all a reciprocal kind of experience to kind of shining a bright light on others, right?
Sure.
I'm going to go out and promote this great community, one smiling face, one story at a time. I'm going to do everything in my power to tell the story of our community and celebrate the community. And as a result, everybody is learning who Brad is, and they see him as a community leader, a community influencer. And so when they need advice, they go to Brad. And the whole thing has just it's been a profound way for a local real estate agent to develop a local brand that has nothing to do with a desire to sell real estate, but is creating so much influence that he's selling a ton of real estate.
As a byproduct.
Sure. And obviously he's got this story now that, 8,000 people a month are visiting his site.
Huge.
Of 40,000 people in the total population, right? And so 25% of the people that live there arguably are spending time on this community project to want to know the story and want to interact. And it's pretty incredible.
I think it's super cool. So we're going to pause for a minute. When we come back, we're going to dive into a little bit more of this hyper local focus and how you guys can get involved in your community. So we'll be back in just a second. Hey everyone, it's Kristin. Be sure and visit my website at www.andreegroup.com. That's www.andree group.com. And while you're there, be sure to download my white paper, Top 10 Reasons Your Business Isn't Growing Fast Enough. Now get out there and create your no limits moment. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to No Limits with Kristin Andree. We are here with Brian Weiss. And before the break, we were kind of hearing more about your friend Brad and the success he has had with his Faces of site. So I got a chance to check out the site, and it's really cool because he does interviews of everybody. I mean, there's business owners, there's just regular people, there's kids that might have had some really cool happenings or accomplishments. So I love the fact that you can really get to know people.
Sure.
Because I like hearing people's stories,
mm-hmm.
but I'm probably, even as extroverted as I am, I'm probably not the person that's going to just walk up to the owner of the coffee shop and go, so tell me your story, because that would first be creepy.
Yeah, it's a little weird, right? Neither you nor he have
exactly.
time, right?
You're like, why are you asking me this? But I feel like it's something you'd want to know. Like sometimes there's a restaurant I go to in Johns Creek, which is another suburb of Atlanta. And the owner I've had the opportunity to meet, and he's really intriguing. And I really like the guy. I've run into him. I was actually at his restaurant last week, and he's super cool. But I know little bits and pieces, but I would be so intrigued to read a story on him, because I think there's certain people in your community that you see a lot or you run into a lot that you're like, man, what's their deal? I'd love to hear it. So
yeah, it's amazing.
So Brad had a lot of success, obviously. I mean, I know the business success is awesome, and that's a byproduct to kind of him getting to know people. But where you guys kind of took he consulted with you, and you guys at your company kind of said, let's expand this a little bit. So what have y'all done with that concept?
Yeah, so January of last year, 2018, Brad was recommended to our firm because he had a desire to find a partner in every market across the country.
Okay.
And be able to take this platform and basically create a celebration of community from coast to coast.
So cool.
It's like, if I can do this here, right, in Gainesville, Georgia, and there's so many amazing people here that even he, as a highly successful real estate agent, had no idea existed.
Right.
Like the fun, right, that's had in telling this kind of story out and meeting all these great people that is supported by the business impact makes it a good use of time for a community-based business. Right.
And he's kind of like the mayor, not the official mayor, but
unofficial. Yeah.
I know, everybody knows him at this point.
Literally. Yeah, that's everywhere he goes, people are tapping on his shoulder, either nominating someone or sharing something that has kind of impacted them as a result of kind of hearing all these stories. And so he sat down with our firm wanting to try to be able to create a way to cost-effectively take this to other markets. Okay. Partner with real estate agents or financial advisors or insurance agents or any community-based business that desires to have stronger community influence. Okay. But more importantly, be at the center of telling that community story. Right. And then basically, in essence, showing them exactly what he's done and what he's learned and kind of the trial and error that's happened over the last 3.5 years. And so...
Because I'm sure it wasn't all... there was some trial and error. It wasn't all smooth at the beginning.
You've got... there's just every little step in the link of the chain of getting it all set up has trial and error and trying to figure out how to do this as efficiently as possible. And resources. A lot of small businesses don't have 10 or 12 employees, and it's usually 1 or 2 or 3. And so do I have time to do all this work? And so he's leveraged 13 interns from the local high school and has gotten students involved, and they're doing it for a grade, and they're now out talking to adults doing interviews. And
you know what? I think that would be interesting because I have a daughter who's going to be in high school next year, and if I had told her to go interview an adult, she'd probably cry. Like she would, she's the type that she has to get up for a presentation at school, and she's like, I don't want to do it. I'm feeling sick today. I think that's a great skill.
He would tell you that every intern has walked in shy and timid and reserved, and then by the time their internship's over, they've got more confidence and they're not as timid and they're comfortable getting out in front of adults. And so,
which a lot of high schoolers are not. They're on their phones and they're communicating in 40 characters or less. Well, I know they've expanded the characters now. I'm dating myself, but
it's a real challenge in today's world that is just one small element of why this project is so cool, right? It's impacting so many different layers within the community, in the community itself. And so, Brad came to us with the idea that, man, this works so well. Right. This somebody needs to be doing this in every community across the country.
They do.
So how do we do that in essence? And so he created the Faces of LLC, and we created a kind of a templated approach to be able to reproduce websites and establish a brand. And we set out to bring on partners, exclusively one per market. We're now in 9 states, and we've
Very
got
cool.
Approaching 50 partners, and most of them are realtors, but we've got a State Farm insurance agent. We've got a digital marketer that is working with small businesses, and
Great.
we are now bumping into like-minded professionals and people that want to be influential and want to have impact, which is creating a really cool world for us to be in.
Sure.
The whole thing is, from an altruistic perspective, it's just fun.
So it sounds like it's fun. And ultimately, you guys would like to be in all these little small markets and building community and help people get to know where they're living.
I think,
and who they're doing business with, really.
yeah, if this plays out like I think it could, and the feedback we're getting from the partners that we have now, we'll have thousands of partners. Literally every market across the country will have someone telling the faces of their market story, and their business, they'll become a top producer in their market, which is awesome. More importantly, their community will be kind of closer, right? There'll be a whole bunch of people that feel like they're learning lots of really cool stuff about their community that they never even knew, or didn't know these individuals existed. And so I think a lot of good will come from it. And super, super excited to see how this all plays out.
I hope it will. And I could see that, because it's funny, we're bombarded with information and knowledge and stuff, but we're craving connection.
That's right.
And I think sometimes we're so inundated with just noise that it's hard to filter out. So when you get something that's actually connection, you're like, okay, this is different. Because I would love to know, like, a little, my kids call it fun facts, fun facts about somebody where we had something in common. So if I walked into a store and I saw somebody, I'd be like, oh yeah, she does martial arts, or, he used to play professional baseball, whatever it is. I think it's neat.
I think it would give you the courage to go up and have a conversation.
Absolutely, which is where you start to build the community, because
that's right.
As lonely as a lot of people are, and as it's crazy. You hear all these terrible statistics about depression and suicide and all that, and it's really just that people they're missing the connection piece. They're missing somebody that's doing the same, thinking the same, feeling the same. So this is really a unique approach to get to know somebody that you otherwise wouldn't.
I believe strongly everybody desires that in some way.
Right.
I think that a lot of happiness in some ways comes from feeling connected, feeling like you're a part of something, aligning to something. Right. And sadness in some ways is feeling isolated, feeling alone. And so, yeah, if we can play a small part in helping people feel like they relate to others in their, where they live, which is critically important, right? Then, yeah, everybody, the tide gets raised. And I kind of have a life philosophy. I heard one time, the rising tides raise all ships. I believe strongly in that. Try to spend my time helping others. And this is a way as a community group to kind of put our arms around each other and try to support each other.
And there's no downside. I mean, it's good for the people you interview. It's good for the person that's behind the faces of. That kind of becomes the mayor, the sponsor. Yeah. So I'm like the person behind the curtain.
No, authenticity is important. We're not behind the curtain.
There's no Oz here, but it's interesting. So your goal ultimately would be this is open to anybody.
It is. Yeah. I mean, there was a natural desire to first go out and try to connect with real estate agents, because we understand
because
the
that's
impact,
how he did it. Sure.
And they're so dependent on their local network.
Right.
But
right.
I have friends in the State Farm world and now have a State Farm partner in Alabama. And obviously have had conversations with you about the potential impact for financial advisors. Yeah. I mean, I think a pizza place, like if you're a community business,
right.
and
that's what I think. Restaurants, gyms, martial arts studios,
dentists,
all those types
eye
of
doctors,
things.
like they all would benefit from shining a really bright light on their community,
right?
Connecting one-on-one with lots of different members of their community, telling that community story, and as a result, becoming more well-known, which inevitably will have people wanting to work with them, right? And wanting to do business with them. And so there's not a lot of limitations as to who it could impact and how. And our desire is just to find someone in every market that wants to tell that story, sees the benefit of being a good storyteller. Probably would be helpful if they did have a community-based business, because it would make a stronger argument for why committing. It takes time.
What they're doing, yeah.
Right. You want to have a couple interviews every single week, and so you've got to commit a pretty significant amount of your time thinking through who and when and why and how.
Who you want to do.
And so one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I get for why maybe not to do it is because I'm so busy right now as a small business owner. I'm not sure how I'm going to fit the time in to do this, right? And so you have to really understand and validate that time investment will be rewarded.
And see the reason you're doing it. You know, my theory, and you've heard this from me before, when we met previously, was that people have time for what's important. Mm-hmm. You always make time. So I never buy the I don't have time excuse.
That's right.
If it's important, you do it. You show up, you get it done. So it's the matter of seeing that, hey, this is something that could really impact first and foremost the community and building community. And then secondly, you know, as a byproduct, the business. I think it's super, super cool. Like really a fantastic way to get out and meet some people. And
I can't tell you how fortunate I feel to be a part of it and to sort of be on the front end from a business development perspective and to get the feedback that we're getting from our partners after they go out and do 15 or 20 interviews. And like the things that start happening as a result, they can't even anticipate fully.
Right.
And so, it's awesome.
So Brian, thank you so much. We are going to post some information about Faces of, because I'm telling you, for you guys with community-based business, this is a home run. I mean, this is just so cool to be able to build community right in your own backyard. So I think you guys have an awesome thing going. So I'm excited about it for you. But we will post some information on our Facebook page. And until next week, keep pushing past those limits. Thanks.